Well, folks, we have a pre-recorded video for you today because Trump recently gave a pretty disastrous interview on NBC News recently about his tariff plan. I kind of wanted to walk you through some of my thoughts in it.
I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow, but I can say that.
So, there we have a lot of people have been focusing on that one part of it. Trump saying, well, he can't guarantee that consumers won't pay the price of tariffs. Now, I understand why people are focusing on that, considering Trump has said for so long that he doesn't think America pays tariffs. He repeatedly lies about the fact that China pays tariffs or Mexico is paying tariffs, when in reality, the U.S. taxpayer is the one that pays tariffs. The Treasury only wants dollars and only has the authority over people in the U.S., so they can only tax people in the U.S. If a company imports a good, that company pays the tariff. If a consumer imports a good, that consumer pays the tariff. If a company imports a good and then tries to sell that good, a lot of times what they do is they take the increase in their cost because of the tariff and pass it on to the consumer. And we've done some studies on this, and usually the pass-through rate is pretty high. But I think the more relevant thing here that people aren't focusing on as much is what he says right after she, cites some economists saying like, oh, a lot of economists agree that tariffs increase prices.
Pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee?
He says, I don't believe them. So I want to make it clear here. Either Trump is being honest and he really doesn't believe them, in which case he actually doesn't know what a tariff is. He literally believes that the United States does not pay tariffs and literally believes that China or Mexico is paying tariffs, which could explain why he likes them so much, right? Because he literally doesn't understand them. The alternative is that he's just lying about it and he does believe them, but he's lying to get voters. Either one is not good, especially if you're asking me to trust Trump to strategically implement tariffs, because a lot of times people say the universal tariffs is just a threat. He's actually just going to use them strategically. Well, if he actually doesn't know what a tariff is, why the fuck would I trust him to use it strategically, right?
American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow, but I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars and we had no inflation. In fact, when I
All right, folks, causal inference is my passion. I mean, what Trump says there, some of it is true. We did have a good economy from 2018 to 2019 pre-COVID. That was a very good economy. There are arguments you can make that, the peak business cycle that we have now is slightly better. Prime age employment is slightly higher. There are other metrics like that. But what he's saying is, because we had a good economy and I had tariffs, therefore, those tariffs are good. They don't increase inflation. When in reality, we've done studies on this, we can see for goods that were tariffed, their price increased. For washing machines, the price of washing machines increased because they were tariffed, right? What he's doing here is drawing a really bad causal inference. Obviously, I don't think anyone is saying that some amount of tariffs precludes the ability to have a good economy. I think that we have some amount of tariffs now and we still have a relatively good economy, but who knows, maybe we would be doing better without the tariffs. In fact, I would argue we almost certainly would be doing better without the tariffs, just as we certainly would have done better without Trump's tariffs in his first term.
handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half. They went almost 2 years just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state.
So when I first heard that, I had no clue what the fuck he was talking about, because he said subsidizing. It's like, well, what the fuck do you mean subsidy? You look at like foreign aid, money we give to Canada, Mexico. So you can see for Canada, our foreign aid obligations are 32 million. And then for Mexico here, we have, 230 million. That's nowhere close to the numbers Trump is suggesting. So he's probably not talking about that right now. The next thing he's talking about, it seems to be, this is in fact the consensus of what he actually was talking about, was the trade deficit. Now, it's totally inaccurate to describe the trade deficit as a subsidy, but like, regardless, you look up the like U.S.-Mexico trade deficit, it's only 131 billion. So the consensus seems to be that he's just lying about how big the trade deficit is, but he is in fact referring to the trade deficit. And this has been a common theme. Like, this is a tweet all the way from 2019 saying the United States has been losing for many years $600 to $8 billion a year on trade. With China, we lose $500 billion. Sorry, we're not going to be doing that anymore. That's him referring to the trade deficit that we have with these countries. Now, that's not an accurate way of framing the trade deficit, which we'll get into, but I think this is a big reason why we should be skeptical of anyone who says, like, clearly these tariffs are just a threat. Trump genuinely doesn't seem to understand tariffs. He genuinely doesn't seem to understand the trade deficit, or maybe he does and he's lying. It's totally inaccurate to frame this as a subsidy in the first place. The trade deficit is just the difference between how much we import, how much we buy from other countries versus how much we export to them, right? So if we buy a lot of stuff from China and China doesn't buy a lot from us, then we have a trade deficit, right? This doesn't necessarily represent a loss to the U.S. In fact, there's an argument to be made that it's a good thing. I think the easiest way to see this is just imagine we had a scenario where the U.S. Exports a bunch of things to the U.K. We sell them in ships. Exports arrive at the U.K. and then the ships are loaded back with U.S. imports, things that we want to import. And when they are coming back here, they sink. The ships sink, and we no longer have our imports. Does the U.S. benefit from this? Technically, we don't have a trade deficit, right? Like we just exported a ton of stuff, but we didn't import anything. Does this make us a rich country? No, obviously not. What matters more is something called real consumption's possibilities. Everything that consumers can actually buy. Trade mechanistically increases this. This allows consumers to buy more things for cheaper because other countries can produce things for cheaper because they have a comparative advantage in those goods, right? It's totally inaccurate to frame it as a subsidy. Also, the characterization of trade or of dollars leaving the country because of the trade deficit is totally inaccurate. This is the same mistake that Abraham Lincoln made. I think Abraham Lincoln said something akin to like, I don't know much about economics, but in the case of tariffs, I know if I buy a coat from England, I have a coat and England has the dollars. But if I buy a coat from America, then I have a coat and America has the dollars. This is a mistake that people have been making for 200 years, and it's not true. It's a simple accounting error, right? So, to take Lincoln's example, it is true when he buys the coat he prefers from England, presumably if he's buying it from England, he prefers the English coat over the equivalent American coat here, whether because it's cheaper or higher quality or some combination of the two things. England now has those dollars, but the people in England can't spend those dollars. They pay their taxes in pounds. They pay each other in pounds. So what are they going to do with those dollars? Well, one, they could buy an import from the U.S. They could buy an American good. Or two, they could buy a financial asset. They could invest in American goods. Now, because America is running a trade deficit, that means we have a lot of foreign investors investing in us, providing investment opportunities for Americans, right? And also giving the U.S. government money to sustain its budget deficit. To the extent that Americans, savings don't match the demand for investment opportunities in America, I think it's good to let foreign capital come in and provide those investment opportunities to people, right? It's not like dollars are leaving the country. The dollars have to come back, whether it be through buying an export or because we have a trade deficit. More commonly, it comes back through buying a financial asset like a bond or a stock or some type of investment in our country. I think that's overwhelmingly a good thing to provide those investment opportunities to people. That's my thoughts on that. I think Trump is being Trump when he says, I can't guarantee anything. I don't think that's the relevant thing. The more relevant thing is that Trump either doesn't know what a tariff is or is lying about it. considering the fact that he said he doesn't trust the economists who tell him the factual statement that tariffs are paid by the U.S. They are paid by U.S. businesses and U.S. consumers. That is the relevant thing. So if you enjoy this video, I would appreciate you liking and subscribing. It would really help out a lot. You can join the Discord down below to chat to me and a bunch of other people about these kind of things. I stream on Twitch. That's down below too. Thank you for watching. Go follow me everywhere. I appreciate it.